Really good. Hey, that was great to see you on the Ganjay thing the other day. Yeah. So you're taking the course.
I am very fortunate, yes, and I am so excited to have this opportunity, and I really feel, honestly, just ecstatic.
I
Great.
love
Good,
that.
good.
I love it. Are you learning a lot from it? I mean, what do you think of
Oh,
it so far?
oh yes, tremendously. I'm working my way diligently through it. I have to write a lot of things down, so I am going through it. The history of it. I'm about halfway through. I'm working to the assessment part now, so I'm really gonna step up my extract game, and be able
Fantastic.
to educate myself on that and the proper way, and start putting that into the assessment. So yeah, I'm learning something new, every day, and it's wonderful.
Oh, that's
Oh, that's
great.
great.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put years of work into making that thing happen. So it's really exciting to hear people say it's working
Yeah.
for them.
But you know what? We still learn something every day, not just about cannabis, but
Well,
particularly
absolutely.
about cannabis. So keeps the brain young.
Oh yes. Hey, and how it works with the CV receptors, and are learning how certain strains are going to be able that help with the memory, and
Yeah.
Exactly.
yes. I mean, being able to talk about that, with some real education behind it, it's really an honor.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So do you know what we're talking about, Greg? You're on mute.
You're on mute.
I'll just say no.
Well, happy birthday, Greg.
Well, thank
Happy
you.
birthday.
Thank
Wilbur
you,
came
Swami.
on. Yeah. Happy birthday.
Hey, Wilbur.
Wilbur, and thanks for that package.
Oh my God, what goodies. Love it. That mustard was awesome. I had it last night. Oh my God, it was so good. And those chocolates are beyond,
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yay. And who's there? And Marty. There's Marty already.
Marty.
Yay.
Okay, great.
Marty and Laura's on.
Hi,
Hello,
Laura.
hello.
Yeah, aloha.
So this kind of in the beginning, Marty, we kind of go around and say hi. Is that Laura?
Yeah,
So Laura's on a separate one, right?
correct. I'm downstairs in my office.
Okay. Oh, there's Laura. Great. Oh, that's very cool. We got the double hitter here. Both of you guys. I love it. Good to see you.
I thought, yeah. Hi.
Hi. So yeah, some of our dear regulars are here already. A lot of people come in early before the official start time is 4:20. Always start talking about stuff long before that.
Yeah.
So
And Wilbur, did you shave? Is your beard short or what's going on there? I can see your chin.
Yeah, I did a little spring cleaning. Yeah.
Okay. I was just checking to see if the same guy.
I'm going to change my underwear the next full moon. I'm kind of attached to them, so no pressure.
Okay. Well, maybe we didn't need to know that part.
it must be warming up in Maine. Is that it? It's warming up back there.
They say in Maine, if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes. It'll change. Yesterday, it was 58 in the morning. And then by noontime, we had thunder and lightning storms and hail. By 3 o'clock, it was snowing. And then 75-mile-an-hour winds all night. So you never know.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, we would like some of that rain out here.
Yeah, we need the rain. We're in serious drought. The governor just declared Mendocino and Sonoma County extreme drought, serious drought. So we're in trouble. We don't even have not even 40% of the rain we're supposed to be having. So
it's bad.
So that means Nikki will only wash her hair once a month too. So
That's a good thing about having long hair. You don't have to wash it every day, you know? Yeah, exactly. No, it's gonna be tight this year. It's luckily we have a lake for our cannabis plants, and that filled up with the bit of rain we got. It is at the top, but it's a challenge this year.
Well, our lake Ducky. So it's, you know.
What's the size?
What's that, Marty?
What's the size of that, Swami? What's the size of your lake?
The size of it. Well, do you want it in gallons or acre feet?
Either. I got to learn both numbers.
So your sound is really loud and it seems kind of distorted. Is there some way you could put your sound down a little bit? Maybe on your settings or something like that, just to damp it down just a tiny bit. Our lake, we have, well, when they put it in, they estimated it was about 950,000 gallons, right? And it's about 160 feet in diameter and maybe 12, 15 feet deep.
Got it. Is that better?
Yeah.
A little better,
A little
yeah.
bit,
You
little
still,
bit. It might be because you and Laura are in the same house. Maybe I don't know if that makes a difference.
Or maybe our thing's really loud too, Nikki.
I'll do that too.
Yeah, we can put it down a little bit. I don't know.
That's
Anyway,
exact-
we'll just and
that should
so
work.
let's see. Well, now Marty, you're in Mendocino County, right? You're one of our neighbors.
Correct. I have a farm in Covelo and I live in Willits.
Oh, really? So that's interesting. So you go back and forth between the two. Wow, that's a long drive.
It is. When I'm on the farm, I make sure my time is very valuable on the farm. But I start late and finish early, and I only grow once a year. So, you know, I don't have to worry about light depths or greenhouses and all of that stuff. I start very late and I finish very early. I do a intense feeding, intense pruning, which allows my plants to finish. Most of them finish in September. I'm usually done by the first or second week of October.
Yeah, that's like, well, we're not done till the end of October, but we also just do the one crop
So
a year.
you say you start late. When is that? When do you crack your seed or do you clone?
I actually do a combination now, mainly because I'm trying to keep up with the gelatos and the Skittles. And, you know, I've learned that when I'm on the shelf, it's more like the bud tender's going to sell a strawberry space Skittles than they will a Covelo Kush, for example. Even though I prefer the Covelo Kush, the name has a lot to do with how sales kind of work, at least with the dispensaries that I'm in. The gelatos and the Skittles the last 2 or 3 years have been, you know, more popular than any of my better strains, but those are the names that people like, and I've kind of moved in. I've shifted a little bit in that direction, so I'm about 50-50 now, seed to clone. And, you know, 2 or 3 years ago, guys, if you would have asked me the same question, I would have said, no way, clones, no way, you know. And but I'm trying to be aware of what's going on in the marketplace. I've reduced the size of my plants. I've done some 4 foot by 32 foot beds and have done like 40 or 50 plants in those, more like 2 or 3.5 ounce plants, rather than the 5 or 7 or 10 pounders that I was growing. So I'm really trying to shift and adjust when it comes to, you know, the lack of labor we have in Mendocino County. I know you guys actually have some people on the farm working with you, which is great, but my business associate and I do all the work, and it's, you know, when we get into the depths of summer, it's, you know, 16, 18-hour days, and it's somewhat overwhelming, to be quite honest. But, you know, that's what we got in for, to get overwhelmed by cannabis. But we're focusing on just keeping the flowers as high grade as possible, and that really helps. We've actually reduced. This was the first year in 6 years that we reduced canopy size in our total production. because we wanted a cleaner biomass, and we wanted our micros and smalls to be cleaner as well. And we've seen an increase overall in THC percentages, with our oils and our, hashes and our small joints, the percentages have gone up 3 to 4%. So I'm not stuck in the mud. I definitely kind of shift and adjust to what my dispensaries and buyers are looking for or asking for. And, it's a learning curve. I don't think I know everything. I don't think I'm the best at what I do. I just pay attention, and I'm pretty consistent about walking that farm every day and, catching all of those anomalies that occur, with sun grown. I mean, a pest can come in and within a day or two, you could have major issues. And, I tend to stay on top of that stuff really immediately through my integrated pest management program.
Oh, yeah, that's great. So when do you actually start your seeds, when you do your seeds, and when you put the stuff in the ground?
That's a great question. So, because of the water issues, I used to start in February or March, and now I'm actually starting in May on the new moon. So I literally, I'm on the farm May, June, July, August, September, October, a little bit of November processing and finishing. It's a 6-month cycle for me, and the last 2 years, I've really enjoyed it, Swami, to be honest. I'm not in the depths of cannabis anymore. I'm focusing on the brand. I'm getting the product out there to the retailers, and I'm telling the story. As you guys know, a lot of consumers in the marketplace have never smoked high-grade sun-grown. They're used to that, when they went to the University of Kansas, their friend grew a little plant outside, and that's their idea of sun-grown. And, when a cannabis consumer gets a hold of a $30 or $35 eighth, and it's far superior than anything at the $45 to $65 range, that's how I keep customers is, we have a really good price point coming in, at that $30, $35 eighth range. Now, I'd like to see that change over the next 5 or 10 years. I'd like to see our prices, go up as the state walls come down and people start asking for Mendocino sun-grown. And, but right now, I tend to stay in that $30 to $35 range at retail. My bubble hash is in the $25 to $30 range. My pre-rolls are $8 to $10. It's a really sweet point. It's a really good price point for people to buy, whether they're in San Francisco or Sacramento or even all over Mendocino. I know that we're on the shelf next to you at Sundialed in Ukiah, which has been really, really successful the last couple of months for me. And it's flying off the shelves. I have 2 flowers that are just flying off the shelf. The caramel apple gelato and the Covelo lime kush, both tested in the 25 to 29 range. And I'm not a big fan of numbers, but it helps the bud tenders to kind of move that product right off the shelf when someone comes in and is like, oh, I need something that's going to get me high, and it's got to be high THC. So Sundial's doing a really good job promoting my brand. And I just had a good 420 party there 2 days ago. That was great. The place was packed from 12 o'clock to 7 o'clock. A line out the door. It was nice to get involved with them.
Oh, wow.
Great. That's good
Oh,
news.
we should have stopped by that. We didn't know about that one. That's interesting.
Are you guys in there, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. We are in Sundial. We just it's a new one. It's a brand new one for us. Yeah. And that's a nice place. It always amazes me that people in Mendocino actually buy weed. I just assume they all grow their own, but I guess they don't.
No, it's amazing. Like I spoke to 2 of the 3 cures this morning, and they both had records at their stores for sales. I spoke to 2 of my contacts in Lake County, and they both had record days on 420. So I think there's, more people actually getting into the business and less people selling in the black market. Obviously, it's huge, as you guys know, but I think overall the consumers are, feel more comfortable knowing that the cannabis is clean because of the testing that California has. And, that I've seen more people coming to the stores that you would not think because the buddy grows it. But I think they want to come in and try some of the newer strains and, see what's going on in the regulated market. And I think people are impressed. The packaging is beautiful. We're forced to kind of tell everything on the jar so you can pick it up and you get a really good sense of, who the farmer is and what the farmer is and where they're located. All the numbers are there. If they want to look it up, they could actually look up the test. It's a lot of work, as you guys know, with metric and stuff, but I think it's well worth that for the marketplace, for the consumer to come in and kind of get a good sense of, who they're purchasing from and, who they're supporting. And as we move further and further away from this whole COVID year, which has been difficult because, I believe in consumer contact and, talking to them and shaking their hands and, giving samples and passing out the lighters and the matches, and not being able to do that this past year has been difficult. I mean, we kind of transferred that into social media, sessions with Swami and all the work that you guys do online, and the video is very important. But there's nothing like that one-to-one contact in front of a table, you being able to shake someone's hand, show their face, answer questions in the immediate. And I actually miss that very much so. And I hope by June, my hope is by summer, we could be back and doing those weekly events, at dispensaries, because that's when sales go up. I see a spike, in sales when I'm actually in a dispensary, pushing the brand. And I don't just push Martyjuana, I push Swami as well. I push push that idea of small farming and, supporting your local farmer and, understanding that, we do it different because we're not scaled, and we take every flower and we treat it with this unique kindness and respect. And, I think over the long run, that's going to help us out, in my opinion.
Right. Do you have one of your packages there, like your jars or something? I'd love to see what they look like. I've gone so into the regulated market that I don't keep much of that stuff around anymore like I used to be honest. Like, even when I travel in my car, like, I literally travel with like a one joint in my own little holder, and I don't have, pre-64, I would travel to LA with whatever I had and all the patients I was taking care of. And if my wife is listening, maybe she'll bring something to me. But my jarring and my branding is black and white. It's very basic, very modern, easy to read, easy lettering. Not the colorful, cartoony thing. I really wanted to stay away from that and present, like a really nice. I like your color tone too. I like your black jars. I think those blackout jars are great. I'm just working really hard to build a brand side of things. The first 2 years was all about just getting in the market and giving the distributor or giving the manufacturer my weed. Go do what you got to do with it. And then about 2 years ago, I said, these distributors don't pay me anyways. They pay me when they want. I'm going to focus on building the brand. And that's been really hard getting to market every year. We're harvesting in September and October, and I don't get to market until Christmas, and I'm not used to that. I mean, pre-64, we would bring pounds fresh, right to the dispensaries in October, early November, and, buying the jars and getting the labels and making sure the COA is right. And it's crazy, as you guys know, because you're involved with that. I mean, I know Seed to Soul is doing your work now. Have they kind of cleaned up some of your back end? I know you were with Champ for a while, and I think you were with Flocana for a while. So how's Seed to Soul working out for you? They're much better than where we were at Champ. They're much better. They just
good,
like really honest, straightforward people. They were able to do our trimming as well, because we're not able to trim on site anymore because we don't have a commercially building that, ADA, the whole thing, we don't have any of that. So we have to send it out for trimming. So they're able to do all of that, which is helpful. And they're just really good people, Patrick King's an old friend. So it's a really good feeling working with him. Yeah.
Just some good news, by the way. I've had a permit since day one. We were permit number 16 in the county. And we've been on top of our paperwork. Every year it was a quick renewal. And this year our renewal came up on the 17th of December. And with all the changes that they made at the county level, I slowed down. I brought in a land management guy to redo my whole site plan, and an engineer to work on my building site. I mean, we just processed. We gave them our paperwork at 10 o'clock this morning, a full packet through my compliance company, and we actually received our renewal, about a half hour ago, which, was 4 months of really hard work to get that renewal. Because the last couple of years, it was just, we went in, we paid, and it was like, oh, here's the renewal. But this time we really had to put a full packet together.
Yeah, we just turned ours in last week, actually. And
Good luck. Good luck.
I do hand drawing. It was my hand drawing. We may actually we're going to get the GIS drawings or something like that. We did that for the water rights and discharge and fish and wildlife. We had those engineering drawings. But the county wants a different one from the state farm.
Correct.
The farm wants a different one from wildlife, and the wildlife wants a different one. It's just crazy how many times you have to repeat the same stuff, but slightly different. So, and who's your distributor?
Yeah, the first thing I did was I brought a land surveyor in, and because the GIS mapping is, especially for rural counties, the GIS mapping could be up to 200 to 400 feet off on boundaries. So when I was trying to figure out, I'm going to spend all this money on a site plan, I want to make sure that I'm using the correct property lines. So I brought a professional in, and property lines were so off from the April 1972 original survey. There was a 600-acre parcel that they broke up in Covelo. They made 30-plus acre parcels on one side and 5-plus acre parcels on the other side of the creek. So the original property line was so different than our GIS mapping, and we had to make changes and move some fencing over and stuff. It was ridiculous. But the truth is, to be honest, I wanted to know where my land started and my land ended, because I have illegal grows all around me. As you guys know, Covelo is freaking crazy right now. So I wanted to know exactly where my boundaries were, and we lost some space on one side and we gained some space on the other. But now I know exactly where it is. I have the original survey map from April of 1972, and our property size increased by about 2 acres overall, and but nevertheless, it's been a very, very difficult process. And I think Casey with Happy Day Farm said it the best. He's like, at least we can see the light at the end of the tunnel now, but we still got a long way to go. We still got a long way to go.
Long way to go. I know, we want those annual permits from the state, That's what we're all working towards. So it's really crazy. It's really crazy. Wow. So Marty, I'm kind of wondering, first of all, it's 420 just about happening, folks. So Swami's lighting up here. Join on in. And let me introduce anyone who's just come on. This is Marty Clein of Martyjuana. I love that name, Marty. So have you always been called yourself Martyjuana, or is this like a thing you just came up with?
That's a great question. That came about when I was already in California, and when I lived in Sonoma Valley for 10 years, people started telling me that the flour that I was producing was really good. Early on, I had a knack for producing a flour that I loved, and it was only about intention. I wanted to produce a good flour because I was consuming it and my wife was consuming it. But my nickname was actually Marty Farty, to be quite honest. But Martyjuana came about in about 2010, maybe 2011, which I prefer that nickname, actually. And we had an article written about us in Sonoma Wine Magazine by Jonah Reskin 11 years ago. And it's been great press from Jonah ever since. We tend to get together every couple of years, and he does a follow-up. But that's how I came about the name. My wife got me some business cards for one of my birthdays, and now I own the federal trademark and state trademark. I have a separate LLC company that controls the licensing for Martyjuana, and I'm beginning to consult in other states, and I'm trying to take the intellectual property that I have as a farmer. And I don't think it's anything special. We have amazing farmers in Mendocino County, but I'm trying to take that intellectual property that I know, the way that I grow, and kind of use that for my advantage as I communicate with investors in Florida and Massachusetts and Michigan. I get a lot of phone calls from the press that I've had over the last 10 years, and I'm trying to, capitalize on that, because the cultivation and farming side of things is so intensive and so difficult. I do that for this 6-month window, and then I really focus on, the branding and marketing of Sun-Grown and, Mendocino County and the Emerald Triangle and, Martyjuana. Those are the 4 or 5 pillars of what I communicate about when I'm on the phone with these people that don't know me. They just have read stories about me. Like the most recent one from Marijuana Ventures, which turned out to be a really good collaboration with Brian over at Marijuana Ventures, who wrote a great article, and that's just been fantastic press.
Great. That's
so
great.
What do you think about the movement in California for appellations for cannabis?
That's a great question. My wife and I spent our first 10 years in Sonoma Valley, and we have this unique perspective on cannabis as a luxury item. So my approach to cannabis is different than a lot of people that are just growing for a distributor or for a manufacturer. So I kind of come at it from that perspective. This, small farms are going to make it. We have less overhead, we have less problems, and we can manage that a whole lot easier. We're not losing millions of dollars a month or hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. We don't have investors that we have to sit down with and communicate with. I focus on that right there, just kind of, communicating about, small farms and, what we have to offer, to the cannabis community. I actually just, on a side note, I actually just noticed that one of my aunts is on the line right here, Patty Rubenstein. I love you. Thank you for joining us online. Oh my God, and my other aunt is Judy. My Aunt Patty and Aunt Judy are on the line. I love these ladies. Wow, thank you for joining us.
Welcome to Session with Swami.
So where did you grow up, Marty? Where are you from? And where is Judy and Patty from?
I'm from Miami, Florida.
Okay.
And we've been in California for almost 20 years. And when we came to California, California was the only state where there was medical marijuana. And when I was in Miami, I never knew what kind of marijuana I was getting. It was from Jamaica one time. It was from Colombia one time. It was from the Bahamas one time. We knew what we were getting. And every once in a while, you would get a pound of some fluffy bud. It was super stinky, super green, never had seeds in it. And, my wife and I had a dream of coming to California, and, we made a decision to, to come out here and be a part of this community, and learned about organic farming and biodynamic farming. I worked with the Benzigers early on and was kind of bit by that biodynamic bug, at least the general principles of biodynamics. I don't follow all the Demeter certifications, but I do believe in, the sun and moon cycles and, harvesting on the full moon, harvesting in the morning, vitamins rich, things of that nature. And, I tend to follow like a real French intensive gardening where, I touch every plant every day. When you're dealing with a small number of plants like we do is, 10,000 square foot farmers, it's pretty easy to walk your whole garden, and one of the sayings with marijuana is every plant every day. And it makes a difference. It really does make a difference in the final flower. And I always tell people that growing a flower pretty much is easy. You put a seed in the ground, you give it a little water, you give it some food. But what makes cannabis so unique is the dry, the cure, the preservation, and the storage of that flower, especially for guys like you and I that grow once a year. Being able to go to the storage, sometime in May or June and pull out fresh flowers is very important. And that's something I really worked on, is, perfecting that four-part process. And it's made a difference. The distributors sometimes say to me, wow, man, that's from, September, or that's from October. And that, that feels really good to be able to present fresh flower late in the season, because I can't get it all to market right away. I kind of, every month or two, I tend to release flower into the marketplace, because of the way I'm trying to have product on the shelves throughout the season. And my brand is there right next to, all the other big brands. And, the buyers definitely want something on the shelf all year round. And that's another one of the adjustments that I've made as I've, got a little deeper into regulated cannabis and kind of learning how to maneuver. It's like nothing else. There, the idea that we have to work through distributor guys is, it puts a really bad taste in my mouth. I have 2 distributors right now that owe me a lot of money in real dollars, and it's hard to get a hold of them. I'm not a priority to them, and that's been very difficult.
So do you do your own trimming at home, Marty?
We do it on site. We do it on site. We're upgraded. We have one 24-foot by 28-foot building that's being engineered right now to be upgraded. When we had it built, it was built like a really solid building. We have to do some minor upgrades to make it a commercial building, but we're very close. Maybe another $7,000 or $8,000 to upgrade it. We'd have to permit the electric, which was done professionally, just wasn't permitted, but it was done from a guy that is licensed, and we have a permitted solar, permitted septic. I enjoy that the idea of harvest comes from the wine industry for me, where everybody gets together, everybody comes together. It's the most amazing time of year when you get to pick those flowers and preserve them. That's one of the things I actually miss about pre-Prop 64. I used to enjoy that idea of the 15, 20 people on the farm coming together to get something done. And as you know, we can't do that with OSHA regulations and ADA bathrooms and stuff like that. And it's been very difficult. That's why I've kind of reduced production a little bit to make sure that my quality is saying AA, AAA.
Right. Oh, that's brilliant. So yeah, so that's great. So you don't actually just release it all to the distributor right away. That's great.
I tend to get a 15 to 25 pound batch to a local distributor very quickly. And all 3 of the distributors I work for allow me to make contacts myself, if you know what I mean. They do work on their own. If they could sell it, that's great. But if I originate the contact, I pay less of a distribution fee. They manage it. They collect the excise tax. They collect the cultivation tax. They do their paperwork, and they pay me. But I go out of my way to keep in touch with the buyer directly, just in case a distributor doesn't work out. I can move my product to another distributor, and I still have access to those buyers. So when I'm communicating with a buyer, they don't know if the material is coming from Sacramento to get to their distributor, to get to their dispensary, or if it's coming from my woods. So I kind of maintain this trifecta of distributors to keep my dispensaries happy. It's ridiculous. If I found one distributor that I really liked, if I found one person that could take care of me completely, I would move to them. And I'm trying to find that distributor right now. But right now it feels good to have somebody in Oakland, I have somebody in Sacramento, and then I use Kevin Shee with Emerald City here in Willits, because I live in Willits and I'm very close to his office, and I have a good eye of keeping Say again.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say is,
What did you say, Swami?
if you find that good distributor, let us know who it is. Because
I didn't hear what you said, Swami.
You can't hear you, huh? Okay, so no, I have, you know, when judging for the Emerald Cup that we just finished doing, right? So about 260 in the licensed flower category we judged. And it's very interesting because we also judge the personal grown. And part of the problem with the licensed is I'm sure that it was grown beautifully, but it's not stored properly when it gets to the distributor. Just in the travel time, in, you know, when they pick it up in the van and they take it out or they dropping it off, is that van properly air conditioned? Is it keeping it fresh, or is it sitting in the sun? You know, this I think is really a problem actually, to make it be as good as possible when it hits the store. 100%. So
Yeah.
for you to be able to keep it home as long as you can, I think is a great idea.
Yeah. And I have a concrete building, temperature controlled, AC controlled. I keep my cannabis at like 54 degrees, and I focus on oxygen removal rather than moisture control. So I have my cure down so well. When I put my cannabis away, it's at about 7.5 to 8.5% moisture levels. And for the first 2 months of preservation, I check it every 2 weeks. I don't necessarily open it, but I check it. And then once I go into storage, I put in what's called oxygen absorbing pads. So I'm not using the Bovito two-way moisture pads, because those actually remove moisture from the flower, and they actually remove terpene vapor from the flower as well. So I have found that the oxygen absorbing pads do a better job of preserving that flower, keeping the chlorophyll really green and the terpenes super rich. And you know, that's been over, 20 years of kind of refining that. But I use those two-way absorbing pads like 4 or 5 years ago, and I didn't find that it worked for me. I know a lot of people use it. I just didn't find it worked for me.
Right. I agree. I totally agree. Interesting. Yeah, it's, you know, in the old days, we used to just keep it out in our shed with the nice cool breeze coming through the trees in the forest. And that always kept it the best, you know, just right out there, where it kind of always stays in the 50s up here under the trees, you know, even in the hottest summer days.
I had a question for you guys. I remember from your birthday party, or it was a Swami get together, but I think it was your birthday as well, at the Barbary Coast. And I had a great conversation with Swami, and I wanted to get his opinion. Say again?
I just wanted to say it was actually my birthday and it was your birthday as well, because everybody, Marty and I have the same birthday. And I'm very proud of that. We're both February 1sters, and we're part of the same club. It's a great club, February 1st.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. So Swami, I wanted to get your take on how you feel about these 12-month COAs where cannabis has to be retested if it's not completely sold by the end of a 12-month COA. Because I know you and I had a conversation about the way terpenes and cannabinoids age. It's almost like a fine wine. I believe it becomes better. My wife and I have cannabis in storage for 2 or 3 years, and it's just as good, or if not better, than it was, a year ago or 2 years ago. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah. Well, I very much like aged cannabis. And my friend Kevin Jodry once pointed out that in the old days, that's what we got because it had to come from Colombia or Vietnam or wherever it was. So we didn't get it till maybe 8 or 9 months after it was harvested. Now, with the fresh harvest, you're talking about, sending stuff off to your grower or your dealer friend right away. That green stuff has its own purpose, but the real difference now is the difference between monoterpenes and polyterpenes, right? So the live plant has all kind of esters and alcohols and ketones that it's off gassing while it's alive. that kind of stops as soon as you cut it down. But then what comes are the monoterpenes. They evaporate because they're simpler. They're monos. They're like one singular thing. So they can off-gas pretty quickly. And then what happens over time is many of those monoterpenes then polymerize and join together, and they become polyterpenes. There's some terpenes like beta-caryophyllene, which is a sesquiterpene right from the beginning, and that one will stay and last quite a long time. So what you want to avoid are the development of those terpenes which signal degradation, bezobolol, and there's a few others that when they test, they say, oh, this has gone beyond. But there's a sweet spot. I don't really like to smoke the crop until March anyway. If I harvest in October, I don't think it's quite really ready to smoke till March, right? And then
I agree.
Yeah, if you store it properly, then without opening it in the right conditions, a dark jar and cool and so on, you know, it's still good a year and a half later. And then if you decant it at that point, so now you have your big jar, now you've decanted it into many little smaller jars, and you don't open them until you actually go to use that jar. You can extend that way beyond. And, you know, I have some, what is that, so cherry limeade or something like that, which is from 2019. And I have some good, what is that called? Queen of Hope, which is from 2018. And these things, but the reason is they have a terpene, which has been stable, right? And then there can be a slight little fermentation sort of happening there, just like happens with tobacco, but that's not a bad thing, right? But when you get a super sour smell, it becomes a different thing. So I've been talking with Frenchie Cannoli about making hash from aged cannabis also. And that's a whole other different kind of thing when now everything's kind of aged and a lot of the terpenes have changed. And so it's a different medical and it's a different olfactory sensation. So I think each has its use. Fresh green, now they're doing fresh frozen out in the field and they're doing rosin or whatever they call it, resin. I never know the right word, right? But they, you know, fresh frozen on the field, it's so green. Well, they're getting something different than what we have when you've aged it and cured it. And well, first of all, you dry it, then you cure it, then you age it. And that's when it really develops into this fullness where you get the best of what's really available.
And also, Marty, of course, the CBN comes out. You know, the older as you store it, the CBN comes out. And the CBN is what makes it feel even stonier, actually, because it turns, it gets a little heavier. You just feel more high, really. Well, it does. Also. I mean, have you done any testing on anything that's 2 years old? Because we've never sent it back to the lab. Our personal, you know, in our personal.
The only testing I do is my wife is a cannabis connoisseur, and she would tell you that the stuff that's 2 or 3 years old, it gets you just as high, and like you said, sometimes even a little more headier. And I mean, I haven't done any real testing, but when Steep Hill Laboratory opened many years ago, I was one of their first farms to start testing cannabis. Because a lot of people were saying, oh, your stuff is really good, it's really shiny, it's got a lot of crystal, and I really wanted to find out moisture levels, which were very important to me for storage, and also THC levels, because it would be good to be able to tell the dispensary buyer, hey, this is sun-grown, but whatever. So I've been testing my cannabis for, I mean, I think I got tests going back 12 years or 13 years. And I always thought that was a big part of, you know, being able to sell direct to dispensaries, whether it was LA dispensary, you know, Central Coast dispensary, or somebody in the Bay. I actually miss those days of just, you know, putting 5 or 10 pounds in my car, just driving around to go collect receipts or collect money and get product into the, you know, the hands of people that need it. I mean, my wife and I, the last 2 years, we've donated to the Sweet Leaf Collective, and that's been some of the best feeling we've had in regulated cannabis in a long time, is being able to give a free pound to somebody that really needs it and have them distribute it to patients. And, you know, I think that's one of the things we've lost with Prop 64, some of that compassion side of things. And it's nice that the governor did sign the compassion bill. So I don't pay my cultivation tax on the 1 pound that I donate, but I do think the patients have been left behind. It costs more money for most people to get cannabis, and that's been very difficult to kind of swallow as someone that came from that caregiver realm. And for so many years, I would travel the state of California in my car and visit patients that were in. Some of them were wanted to get high, but some of them were serious patients that were referred by pain doctors that respected the quality of the flower that I grew. And I've worked with patients 50 years old and as old as 85 and 90 years old, and they've cannabis was like their last resort in trying to feel better. And I really miss that side of the of the cannabis space. And I hope if we're able to deal with consumers directly one day, whether it's selling it to somebody in Missouri or having them come to our farm, whatever the dream might be, I think the sooner we get there, the sooner the consumer or patient in this case would get a better price and be able to deal with the farmer directly. And I've done the numbers. The idea that you and I can't sell an ounce to a consumer at $150 or $200, and we could tax that and keep that tax dollar here in Mendocino County, it just boggles my mind. I shake my head every time I think about it. I mean, there's so many issues when it comes to the expansion and the stacking of the licenses and all the corporate money coming in. But put that aside for a second. The idea as a farmer, I can't sell to any one of these people on this call here directly and keep that tax dollar in Mendocino County just burns me. I mean, Mendocino County is so freaking poor. The idea that we're not allowed to do this is really harsh, and it's harsh for the consumer. I mean, they would get a better deal at 150 or 200 an ounce, and you and I are not scraping by at 800 to 1,000 a pound. We're making 2,000-3,000 a pound now, and it's been difficult to swallow. I mean, I own multiple businesses, and cannabis isn't my only thing, and I'm trying to professionalize what I do with cannabis, whether it's the branding side or the farming side. But the stress levels in my household the last couple of years, as the county hasn't been able to figure out things, has been crazy. And because I got involved with regulated cannabis, and they're doing the right thing. They're laughing at me for real, because when you look at what they've done to the system here in Mendo, it's and that's not even taking the state into account, which is a whole nother cabal with the whole CEQA issue and the compliance of farms. I mean, they're not doing enough to help us. And the whole intent of Prop 64 was to keep it small and keep California unique because of the number of total farms we have. But yet 83% of the counties in California don't even have a cultivation ordinance. It's like, it's been tough to swallow. And, like you guys, I focus on my brand. I focus on, doing interviews and, talking to people about what I'm doing. And that's what makes me feel good. But, tomorrow morning I got to set up an appointment with this county to come in and pay my bill. And then I got to start working on my state annual. It's, it's one thing after another. I just want to farm weed, man. I just want to grow some food. And, it's turned into a whole lot more than I could have ever imagined. And like I said, the stress levels in my household, from day to day as we're watching a board meeting and one supervisor says something and the new cannabis manager says something, and you call in and a banner says something and nobody's speaking the same language. And, I want them to get it right, but, it's very difficult, man. I miss the days we used to go to the board meetings and be able to stand up in front of the board and they could see the expression on our face and, put a face to the name. And now with these phone calls, Henry's could have 70 employees call in, and it makes it seem like we need, big business. We need big grows in Mendocino because 70 people said it, rather than realizing where all those 70 people, came from. And it's been tough to deal with, but I'm resilient. I'm smart. I'm educated. And if I want to stay in cannabis, I'll be in cannabis as long as I want to be. I'm hiring professionals to do the work for me. And I'm just focusing on what I do well, which is grow the best flower I can and tell people about it. So thank you for this opportunity to be able to do that. I appreciate it for sure.
Well, it's always so great to see you or hear you and Laura lately at the meetings. And yeah, I do miss our meetings where we used to all come together and actually see each other and talk with the other farmers, have that face to face. I don't know if you know about it, Marty, but on June 5th, I think you guys did sign up, right? We're going to do a little gathering out here at our ranch for all of our Mendocino farmers, because it's just, all we ever talk about these days is business and this problem with the politics and this and that. So I finally said, screw it. We need a party and let's all come out here.
Great idea.
I'm actually going to say, if you want to talk about politics, go over to that acre over there. There's another acre set aside for that. It's not right here. This is a time to just enjoy and let down and get to know each other in a way that's not just about politics. It's amazing how we've all had to grow into being able to do this. We weren't born to be politicians and all this stuff, but we're learning how. It's amazing.
I miss all the parties up at the 101. I miss the seed. I miss the seed gatherings. I miss, the whole Bell Springs crew. I used to spend a lot of time up your hill. I haven't seen those guys on their farm in, such a long time. And, I really miss those seed swaps and, the farmers markets and, the whole atmosphere that Tim was creating up there was amazing. The idea that that's not a dispensary proves how fucking crooked this whole thing is. But that's another story for another time. But I hope over time we'll be able to do more things up at that property. And it's nice to know that Black Oak Ranch is going to have that sun-grown party, which is really cool too.
Yeah, and also, Marty, do you know about the one on June 19th? There's going to be a smaller, much sweeter, I think, farmers market thing happening at Mick Smiglis's distribution place in Laytonville. It's right off of Highway 101. And we're going to definitely be there. And I can't wait because we're going to actually be able to be there, see people face to face again, be able to just share it, have that feeling of sharing we always had.
No, that's nice.
I like Nick a lot. He spends a lot of time in Covelo. He's got a lot of farms that he works with. And as you guys know, it's not easy to sell flowers 1/8 at a time. So I definitely work with Nick. He actually just picked up a 28-pound pack from the farm just recently to help with cash flow. It's a little slower when you sell it, 1/8 at a time or, 32 jars at a time too. So we definitely work with Nick, love his work. And through the Covelo Cannabis Advocacy Group, they're actually going to get a table for them. I'm also a founding member of the Round Valley Cannabis Co-op and a board member for them as well. We haven't done anything really for the last year because of COVID, but the ultimate goal is to be able to, build that co-op and, have some, farm communication a little more than just advocacy over the internet or advocacy at the political level. Being able to aggregate 16 farms at a 1/4 acre apiece, 4 acres, which is ridiculous. The idea that we have an agriculture co-op restriction on 4 acres is also insane. It's like around every corner you could tell that Sacramento has no clue really what's going on up here. And, lobby money is real and it affects change. And I really had a vision 3 or 4 years ago with the CCAG, when they were in Sacramento and Hezekiah was there every day lobbying. I had a warm feeling inside knowing that there was somebody, there every day talking and lobbying for us. And, the way the CCAG felt was very difficult. The idea of trying to sue because of the 1 acre and people stacking licenses. And, then it became, okay, well, you're suing us, so now you can't talk to us about anything. And next thing you know, 6-7 months later, the CCAG is gone.
Right.
And looked into some other, wonderful organizations. And now at least we have Origin Council, doing some work with us at the state level. And I think Janine's doing a great job with Appalachians as well. And I think Swami asked that question about Appalachians. So, to touch on that, and we understand in the wine industry, grapes sold in one appellation next to another appellation some of those appellations, depending on, you know, what they're producing, can get double the amount of money per ton of grapes. So my feeling is in you know, in the next 3 to 5 years, you know, with these understandings of terroir, you know, places in Mendocino, you know, up Bell Springs, Spy Rock, we should be able to get more, you know, for our sun-grown than somebody that's, you know, down by Fresno, for example, or somebody in the foothills of the Sierras. We do have a unique climate for it, and that's why we deserve more money for the hard work that we do. You know, and I think it's very important to support Janine and, you know, with the Appellations program for sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm one of the founding members of Origins Council and the Appellations Project. We've been working on it for a very long time. And you're exactly right. Janine is dynamite on it. And, you know, there are still some issues about it. They still haven't finalized the regulations and so on. They're going to have one more return on it. But it could be actually that, you know, essential value added for the small independent farmer. And like your little, Redwood Valley group or whatever you call it, your co-op, that's kind of also an incipient appellations group as well, right? Because each appellation is going to have to get its own group of people together to create their standards that are unique to that area. And by doing that, you demonstrate how unique your area is geographically, in terms of climate and meteorology, in terms of soil and water and all those things. You know, so like we'll say that one of our standards for an appellation is you can't have any trucked in water. You know, your water's got to be from where you're living and where you're growing the product, right? That's just one of those simple things, you know. And so we start to set those standards, and that then people start to say, well, that's one of the reasons this product is different and unique and superior, right? It becomes the expression of the place where it grows, both physically and also the contribution of the people growing it. And we have that tradition in Mendo of sharing those ideas and sharing seeds and sharing pointers and, you know, what's in fertilizer or what you're learning about, you know, permaculture and regenerative farming and all that sort of stuff. And so that's that whole fertile mental construction that we've created up here in the mountains. And so we demonstrate that by outlining appellations, and I think it's a crucial step for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. When you know, I don't know when Janine started talking about it. Maybe was it about 3 years ago now, 3.5 years ago. You know, we've been supportive. My wife and I totally understand the value of using the word Mendocino in general, but also very specific to Covelo or Bell Springs. I think that's you know, something long term. It's very hard to quantify today, you know, with the way the market is. But I think consumers, once they start to learn about these unique spots of heritage, you know, terroir, location, elevation, you know, I think we have some advantages to, you know, other areas that are doing something very similar to what we are. And when it comes to expansion, you know, I wanted to just touch on this a little bit. I'm not against expansion, and I speak to the supervisors about this. I'm not against it, but the idea that somebody coming in now that's new has the ability to grow 8 times, 16 times, 30 times more than I did when I got in the system doesn't seem fair and equitable. Now they came to me and said, okay, expansion, let's expand to 22,000. At least that feels somewhat equitable because it's only twice as much of the largest farm when we were restricted when we came in program. So it's been hard to handle these last couple board meetings where they're kind of just, you know, glossing over our heads how difficult it was, not just to get into the system 3 or 4 years ago, but then to actually stay in the system and be a part of regulated cannabis. You know, I think Mo from the Covelo Cannabis Advocacy Group, she did some research at the county level, and the grape growers last year only paid $205,000 in taxes, and the cannabis farmers paid nearly 5.5 or 5.6 million. But yet Ted Williams is having a problem with the way those taxes were paid because a good portion of it was minimum tax, meaning there's a lot of farmer friends of ours that are in the regulated cannabis, but maybe they're not doing metric properly, or maybe they're not selling completely in the regulated market, but they're still paying their minimum tax due of $2,500 or $5,000. And it just seems like a fallacy for him to kind of just gloss over that it's so much more than all these grape growers. And now the grape growers want to grow weed. That's why only one person we know signed up for the hemp program, because they don't want to grow hemp. They want to grow weed. It's pretty sad, and I hope I hope some of these supervisors get a backbone. If not, I think there's going to be, unfortunately, a referendum, maybe even a couple lawsuits. I think people are very, very upset at the environmental impact that some of these larger growers could have to such a fragile ecosystem that we have here in Mendocino County. And you guys saw the governor in Lake Mendocino yesterday. The guy was telling him where we're standing should be 40 feet of water above us. It's crazy. It's crazy when it comes to that whole issue. And that's not even talking about the animals and stuff that we're dealing with, but just water in general in Mendocino County with the fires that we've had the last 2 or 3 years. It's been crazy. I had a fire next to us. The August Complex fire was like 2 miles away for 5 or 6 weeks. The daily work we had to do on our flowers to keep them as clean as possible, and the preservation that we had to do every day. Pre-harvest, we watered our plant down for like 5 or 10 minutes. I've never done that before. Literally, we took a hose on shower and just sprayed every branch, pulled the branch out, and made sure. You could just see the soot just dripping off it. But yet we passed every test, and none of our buyers have said it smells bad. And I've heard some stories with friends of mine within the Coverdale region that have had trouble selling their cannabis for that reason specifically. I can't deal with another fire like that. It was horrendous. It was terrible. It was. You couldn't breathe some days. You had to wear a filter mask, and I know it was bad by you guys a couple of years ago in the Southern Humboldt fires, and it's only going to get worse. And the idea that they're considering acres and acres of grow it's wrong for Mendocino County.
Yeah, no, we got it last year too from that Humboldt Mendocino complex fire very strongly here. We're thinking this year, and luckily, like you, we took good care of the plants, so it didn't affect them. But we're considering this year putting frost cloth, just buying bolts and bolts of frost cloth to put over the plants when it starts to get smoky. And maybe that'll help keep the ashes off and the frost.
Well, the frost, yeah. Last year.
Yeah, in agriculture. Go ahead.
Well, we actually took a leaf blower and blew the ashes off, because you remember it was raining ashes like snow for days and days. So we would just go out and blow that off. And then after that, we sprayed them some with the hydrogen peroxide. But after harvest, we did something we never did before, is we took each branch and dunked it in a dilute hydrogen peroxide in a 55-gallon barrel, right? And then the next one was pure water, boom. And we changed it every 4 plants, right? And so we had nothing come back with a smell or anything like that. So yeah,
and it uses a lot of water.
It uses a lot of water, which we don't have, right? So yeah, and a lot of that water that's supposed to be in that Lake Mendocino, that goes to the vineyards all the way down the Russian River, right? They get 90 acre feet every year from our water up here from the Eel River through a tunnel, and it feeds the Russian River, and that's what feeds that lake. Well, it's the vineyards who drained it, right? And in Cloverdale and all the other towns that get water out of it, right? So yeah, it's just crazy with the way this water politics is.
What's your feeling on enforcement? I know you guys have a lot of illegal grows around you as well. I'm just curious your feeling on the whole surveillance thing, and your civil rights might be infringed on with this looking in your backyard with the satellite. What's your feeling on that?
Well, I don't really care if there's a satellite looking in our backyard, because it's looking in our backyard anyway. So, that doesn't bother me. But I think it's really time to get the big growers out that are just totally illegal and are raping the hillsides and stealing the water and leaving trash behind and dumping diesel and whatever else they're doing. The time has come. And, you know, I feel kind of like a traitor saying that, but even when we were illegally growing, we weren't doing that shit. You know, we were still being conscious.
Right.
And these people aren't being conscious. I think part of the problem the past years is, from what I've heard, a lot of the police, you know, there'll be a, you know, multi-acre grow of, you know, this horrible, and next to it, there'll be a mom and pop illegal grow. They'd much rather bust the mom and pop because they don't have guns and they're afraid of going on those other big grows. So if they can handle that by doing a satellite instead and just giving these guys giant fines every day because they're so out of compliance, I think we got to do it. I think the time has come, you know, I mean,
Well,
not the mom and pops.
There's
but,
another
you know,
thing that's happened here also, and you mentioned how Covelo, how it's going crazy with, you know, all these greenhouses and so on. And then there's another one out in Potter Valley too, is another area where they've been cutting down oak trees and they've been putting up greenhouses, and all these are unpermitted, right? And so we, as a legal grower, we're not allowed to cut down one oak tree or even one commercial tree, right? Just because we're cannabis growers. And so these other people are just, and so that's why I think as much for the environment as anything else, I think people need to be taken to task on that. We also have to say that, you know, it's like we're going out of business, or we're struggling to stay in business because the illicit market is still dominating the money of the thing, because they can charge just, you know, the same that we charge, and yet they don't pay taxes, they don't pay permits, they don't pay surveyors, they don't pay land use, they don't pay, you know, aquatic surveys and geologic surveys and all that sort of stuff that we've had to go through just to get the right to use the water that's a spring on my land, right? It's a spring on my land. The creek goes through my land. The lake is on my land. And it's like, wait, I have to beg for permission to use 20% of my water? Okay, well, if you want to save the environment, I guess you have to do that. But at least everybody else ought to have to do it too. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Everybody else ought to have to do it, right? And the grape growers also, they're getting off scot-free like you just mentioned, right? So they don't have any restrictions. Dairy people, they don't have any restrictions. We have more restrictions, 10 times more than anybody else. So just a level playing field, just be fair with us, because it ain't right. And so that kind of enforcement, I think mostly on environmental grounds, should be what it takes.
But there is I'm not fond of the divide that's coming up between the legal growers and the illegal growers. And, you know, sometimes like we'll go up to Gravel Pit Market, our local little market up here on Bell Springs Road. And, you know, you can just tell the people that are growing illegally don't want to talk to us about their crop because they're illegal and we're legal. And I hate that divide. We never had that in our community before. And that's unfortunate. That doesn't feel comfortable, you know. What do you
Well, for me specifically, it's only been the last 3 months that I've really felt like we need serious enforcement. And I think we need boots on the ground just as much as we need the satellite, in my opinion, because of what happened in Humboldt. We've had an influx of these farmers that are illegal, and they will only be illegal. They don't want a pathway to get into the regulated market. That's why they came down to Mendocino County to get another year or another 2 years. And you know, I've really just changed my whole opinion on this recently. And I think, you know, because a lot of those people are friends of mine, and I worked with them for years in the illicit market. So I didn't want them hurt. Because some of them have families and I know them. But now it's like, you know, it's time. It's really time to kind of, you know, help us out here. And until we get the illicit market under control in Mendocino County, we're going to have issues with water and, you know, environmental degradation that are beyond anything that we could even imagine. You know, the supervisors throw numbers out like 7,000 other farms or 8,000 other farms. They don't really know. I mean, maybe it's 12,000. You know, we don't know these numbers, and they just, you know, even McGordy the other day was talking about wine and grapes and cannabis, and saying that cannabis uses 4 times as much water than grapes. And I was blown away by that statement. I was like, what's your metric, dude? You're just making some number up, man. That's not true. It actually, we have farmers just like you do that use no water for their crop. So I just, there's a lot of information going around now. I mean, I get calls recently from locals in Mendocino, and they're like, hey, I got this family land, and could you help me with it? I want to be a part of phase 3, and I want to grow 5 acres. And everybody's using the word expansion in phase 3 like they know what the fuck they're, part of my French, and like they know what they're talking about. And it's, I don't let that bother me. It bothers me, but I try not to let it bother me too much. It's pretty crazy what people are trying to do now. They see it as a green rush, and, similar to the tech boom of the 90s, companies are failing. And I don't wish, Flocana any bad news or whatever. If they fail, that's on them. But to be in the position where you're, taking investors' money from somebody in New York, or, some billionaire's money somewhere, it just puts too much pressure on some of these companies, and they're just not going to make it. And they're going to lose good money by throwing good money at it again, and that's what Flocana did when they got this $300 million loan. It's like they burned through the $125 million like it was nothing. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. I didn't mean to kind of go down that dirty road, but it's pretty sad that some of these companies are considered the winners, and all they're doing is losing money. They're not winners. We're winners. We're winners. We're running a small business, making a little bit of money. We're scraping by. We still shop local. That money's not flowing to New York, Green, Gotham, or whoever. We keep our money local. I see you guys in Mariposa Market. You guys are spending your money in Mendocino County, and that's the story we got to tell. And that's what these sessions, and that's why I wanted to be involved, because these sessions are about that. It's creating a history about who we are and what we stand for. And people are going to watch this. Maybe today there's only 10 or 12 people on, but people are going to watch this and, at some point and say, wow, those people were really stewards of their land. And, we got to support sun growing. We got to support small farms. And, I see Wilbur clapping there. Thanks, buddy. And it means a lot to me, and that's why I, spend these hours. I mean, I'm exhausted. I've been running hard for the past 2 days since 420. On 420, I drove to 5 different dispensaries, showed my face, passed out hats, passed out business cards, passed out lighters and matches. And, yesterday was all about finishing my paperwork. I want to present the county paperwork. Let's get all my documents in order. And, today I've been busy just doing, I own an eBay business where I sell vintage music and sports memorabilia, which I've had for 20 years. So I'm busy dealing with eBay every day. And, I like staying busy, but I prefer to be farming and eBaying rather than farming and paperwork, then a little eBay. Right now, the paperwork side of things is, it's taking up a lot of my time. And now I'm in the midst of working on the corporate side of my business with a new CPA, and really trying to lock down my gross sales, cost of goods sold, 280E, my effective tax rate, my net profit, all these numbers that, for so long were foreign to me because I was making a living, but I never had to know exactly what all this was. I do have a really good CPA if you need one, but let me know. But yeah, I'm now crunching those numbers and submitting them to the state. I'm really in a position to get a better sense of how ridiculous this journey has been. Obviously, we've made money to pay our bills and put gas in our car, but for people to look at us online and think we're hitting it out of the park and we're in the cannabis business, they don't understand the nuts and bolts of what we put up with.
Right.
So I have a question for you, Marty. We ask all of our
Sure.
guests, how old were you when you smoked your first joint, and where were you, and who turned you on? I mean, if you're
That's a great question. My aunts used to smoke when I was young, and I always knew that what they were smoking was not cigarettes. because it never smelled like cigarettes. It always smelled a little differently. But they never got me high, really. But when I was in seventh grade, I went to the bathroom, and there was somebody actually in the stall smoking, and I knew that it smelled like what my aunts had smoked in the past. And I knocked on the door, and he obviously wasn't doing anything. He was just smoking. I was like, "Hey man, what are you doing in there?" He said, "I'm smoking weed." And I was like, "I'd love some of that." And I remember from the first couple times that I smoked that it was the one drug that I was doing that actually helped me focus. I mean, the whole myth of being, smoking and not getting anything done, it just wasn't like that to me. I mean, I grew up in Miami, so we had access to, all types of drugs, all the speeds and the cocaines and stuff. And cannabis for me was a friend. It really kind of calmed me down. My grades actually got better as I, was stoned in the morning. I would be so frustrated with life in general. The cannabis would calm me down, and I excelled at sports with cannabis. I was similar to Michael Phelps or, Usain Bolt. It actually helped me excel. I was an exceptional swimmer when I was very young. And then when I got into junior high and started to smoke, I kind of moved away from that, that individual sport. And I wanted that team aspect. And people knew me back then. If anybody ever needed a joint, they knew where to get it. I grew up selling blow pops and candy bars, and when I started to buy an ounce of weed, it was always one quarter for myself and 3/4 for everybody else to pay for my quarter. And I've been doing that for a very long time. But cannabis was always a friend to me, and has been an ally. And my wife uses it every day to stay alive. And I'm a big proponent of listening to what patients need, RSOs and concentrated oils and tinctures. And I definitely find myself doing more than I should at times to help people. But when you see someone that's sick and doesn't know what to do and feels like they're on the edge, you do anything you can if you're a loving and kind and caring person. And I go out of my way to produce the best supplements and oils and balms that I can to help people. And I use it all myself, and my wife uses it, and my aunts are consumers. They've been consumers for 40 years, and cannabis is a part of my life, and I understand the system that I have in my body, the cannabinoid system, and it's a big part of who I am and how I deal with the stress of regulated cannabis. When I have a stressful day, being able to, I usually tend to transfer to hash sometime after dinner around 6 or 7 o'clock. I tend to prefer hash. It takes me to another level just because of the concentration of it. But I really just enjoy getting high and, keeping a calmer life. And, some people could call me a hippie or a back to a lander or an organic farmer, whatever they want to call me. But I do love everybody, even if they don't think like me, or they want to scale their farm, or they want to believe in a certain politician a certain way. I definitely have this genuine love for all humans, and and sometimes it might be people might take advantage of me for that. But I feel karma is not a straight line. It's always this unique bending, winding road of exchange of karma. So I don't give to somebody because I want them to give to me. I give to someone because I want karma to give back to me love and affection when I don't expect it. And that's the kind of way that I deal with my cannabis business, is just trying to give it everything, trying to give my dispensaries and my buyers and my distributors, even the ones I don't like, everything I can. Even if they owe me $30,000, I still just I call them, and it's your birthday, happy birthday, here's a little something, you send them gifts. And it doesn't always work out, but I continue to give. And that's a part of a big part of what Marty's about, and just making it a point to, take care of my workers, wink, wink, take care of the people that help me out. And, my seasonal harvest parties on farm are like no other. The people look forward to coming to hang out with me, because I treat them with respect and, take care of them and, make sure that there's plenty of water and plenty of beer and plenty of food and plenty of meat for the grill. And, that's kind of where I'm at. When you look at some of the artwork that's been created for the brand, it kind of brings that into focus, the party aspect of it. It's okay to get high and have a good time and smile and laugh because life is so serious sometimes. And cannabis is a fun drug for me, and it's a way that I made a ton of friends. And I don't have many friends outside of cannabis. Like everybody that I hang out with, everybody that I deal with, they're all involved with cannabis. And this was even before Prop 64. Everybody I dealt with was a wholesaler or grower or somebody in the seed and nursery business or we were just smoking together casually that I met at the Emerald Cup, for example. I'm happy to be involved with it. I don't know if I would have made the same decision 4 or 5 years ago if I knew what I knew now, but it's a part of our story. My wife says it all the time. When she writes our novel about, our biography, this is just one of those steps of it. And just recently, we heard that we got into Ed Rosenthal's final edition of his marijuana handbook, and he featured our farm in the farm section of the book. So we're really happy about that. So, take a look for that when that edition comes out sometime in late summer. It's been an interesting journey, and I'm so glad that we found out that we're born on the same day. And, I definitely look up to you guys as mentors. I've been going to the Emerald Cup for, 10 or 12 years, watching you guys on stage and, being able to, have this come full circle here feels really good. So thank you.
Well, Marty, you just crack me up. Everything you say is so Aquarian. We're a couple of Aquarius. I totally understand where you're coming from. It just cracks me up. And I think that your Aunt Patty is a big fan. I have a feeling she's kind of proud of you, looking at her expression. Yeah, is that right, Patty? Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, you should be. You You've got a great nephew here. And it's really great to hear your stories and your outlook, because this is where we started from. We started cannabis comes from the heart, and that's we started out as hippies, and it's really has that meaning where, hopefully not going to get too corporate along the way so that we can always keep this and these ethics that we have, around it.
Keep it real. Keep it real.
Keep it real. Absolutely. Yeah. So, okay, we're about to wrap up here. Does anybody have any questions or anything for Marty? Anything at all out there? Everyone looks like they're just really stoned right now from getting high through this whole meeting, I think. That's what I'm looking at.
Much gratitude from Ed Ochoa and so on. Yeah. Well, we just got high from the conversation, right? Because we kind of covered all over the map. I'm really glad you talked a lot about our local issues because that's really stressful for us and really important. And I think for those other people who are in other states and other places, to, this is a little advanced warning about what you may be in for with environmental rules and banking rules and all those sorts of things. So, get ready for the long haul. But the key thing is keep your heart in it and keep giving it away. There's a whole way of doing that.
Wilbur, did you have a question? So unmute yourself.
You're on mute, Wilbur.
Yeah, my wife wants to buy one of those buttons, one of those mute buttons for me. I did have a question for Marty. He mentioned earlier about the co-ops. Do you think that we could possibly get a co-op that would go nationwide to protect Appalachian growers?
That's an interesting question. When you look at co-ops in general, they're all agriculture co-ops, and those are usually specific to either a region, an appellation, or a specific product. So whether it's a cranberry or an orange, for example, and usually it might be in Florida, let's say, in the citrus industry, but usually it's done within a geographic region. So I'm not sure if there's a way to do a federal co-op. Usually they're smaller and more intricate. I think Supervisor McGordy in Mendocino County mentioned the Driscoll co-op when it comes to strawberries, and it's about 36 farms. So, some co-ops, Ocean Spray is, I think, 116 farms. So I think keeping it local and keeping it to a specific region / appellation is probably what California would allow. But, at the federal level, I mean, anything can happen. I mean, if we were able to make a co-op of, 10,000 square foot farms and less, and find a way to aggregate, small farms as a political power rather than an agriculture power, that might be a better way to go. Because, it's funny, guys. My friend in Dos Rios, Mark Theus, has been growing for, I think he says 38 years. This is his 39th year. And I enjoy sitting down with him and getting his perspective on things. And he says, you think things are bad now? Wait till the state walls get down, and wait till these real big companies come in, and then you'll see, what bad is. So like, he's got this unique perspective on it where he's just driving on. He's going to get through regulation. He's going to get through compliance. But things are going to get really bad when federally this takes off, because the lobbying that's going on behind the doors right now is just like any other industry, whether it's coal or electric or, any of the big, pharmaceuticals. There's a cannabis lobby right now in Washington that's spending, from what I've heard, about $2.5 million a week. And federal legalization is, 6 months away, 18 months away. Nobody could really say, but the amount of money being spent at the federal level is astronomical to influence the way some of these multi-state companies are allowed to already do business. And it's a little dirty, but I don't let that affect me when I'm selling to a new buyer or a new dispensary. I don't let what's gonna happen at those larger levels affect me. It's too much to think about, and I could focus on this right now. I'm going in to try to get a new dispensary. I can't worry about Philip Morris or the Bacardi company or what they're going to do with their billions of dollars. I'm on the ground. I'm growing a couple 100 pounds a year, and I'm trying to make a living for myself. I don't want to be a millionaire. I don't want to scale. I don't want a Learjet. I don't want a farm in Colombia and a farm in Jamaica. I want to keep this simple and I want to work smarter, not harder. And I talk about that a lot, is about really sharpening the skills that I have rather than creating, any new skills above and beyond learning what I have and kind of sharpening that edge with the tools that I have, use those better. I'm not, like I said before, I'm not against expansion. I just don't think it's right for our county right now, but nobody's listening to me. I still write letters and I still communicate with the Board of Supervisors and tell people my opinion. But there are big players and, a lot of money coming into this industry right now. On the counties, to our northern counties, to our east, as bad as it is in Mendo, it's worse there right now. The vultures have shown up and they're here to prey, because that's all a vulture knows how to do. And I don't want to end on a sour note, but nevertheless, just be aware. It's consumers in every state, not just here in California, that are going to keep sun-grown small farms alive. You know, just tell the story to your friends about people in Mendocino and Humboldt, in Trinity and Lake County and Sonoma County that grow some of the best outdoor cannabis. You know, our carbon footprint is zero. Just tell that story. It's people like you on this Zoom here that are going to help us get through this.
Yeah.
I want to just say one thing to Wilbur. There's a way in which the Grange, do you know about the Grange? It's a nationwide organization, and we're sort of working with them to sort of get their help, politicking also for the small farmer. For example, Kent Westwood from Mendocino is the head of the California Grange, and he's very pro-cannabis, and he actually been working a little bit with Janine and the Origins Council and so on. So the Grange is an organization that already exists nationwide, and we could go through them and revitalize the Grange, and that could be one of our arms of political action.
And I just want to say, to end on a really up note, is that all those big guys are going to come in. They're going to come in huge. They're going to happen. But there's always going to be the people that are the connoisseurs. And those people that want to get that beautiful craft, small farm grown cannabis, grown with love, grown with intention, grown with regenerative techniques. There's always going to be that. We just have to have faith in that. And I do believe it, that there'll be a place for us.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I just wanted to share one more thing. Kelly, and you could go next. But I did want to say that today is Earth Day. It's 51 years since the first Earth Day. Gaylord Nelson of Wisconsin tried to instill this energy from the anti-war movement into political action. And it was about this support for environmental understanding. We started to understand about water and air pollution. And today is Earth Day, and I just wanted to make sure that we at least talked about that for a moment and reference that the reason we do grow the way we do is because of Mother Earth. The intention of putting up prayer flags, for example, is just as important to me as putting a seed in the ground. And for those that don't understand that, that's okay. But there is a segment of the population that not just understand it, but appreciate it, because that intention is so important. They've studied that, a farmer is not just creating a task of treating a plant a certain way, but their intention of treating that plant a certain way is just as important. Go ahead, Kelly.
Well, I was just going to say, Marty, very nice to meet you. Nikki, Swami, namaste. But you had mentioned Massachusetts earlier, and I was curious, do you have any collaborations or anything going on here in Massachusetts at the time?
Yeah, about an hour and a half west of Boston in a county called Barre, B-A-R-R-E. It's a nice organic agriculture community out that way. And I have some friends that I'm consulting with. They got a 120-acre farm. They just secured a 100,000 square foot outdoor license, and they want to specialize in short season sun-grown, where they're going to do all clones, and they're going to start in and around mid-June and be able to produce 1.5 to 2 pound plants on grid. And the nice thing about what they're doing is they also want to look at building insectaries, adding some vineyards, and also looking at creating their own soil and compost on site. So these guys are, 2 of them are lawyers and one of them is an ex-doctor or a retired doctor. And they want to kind of approach cannabis in a unique Northern California way, let's say. They want to be able to do it in this organic, regenerative way. And there's a plethora of organic farmers in their community, and they're having a lot of success and support. to get involved with cannabis on this multi-pronged attack where they could do the, grapes and other food along with creating their own composting soils and still grow 2.5 acres of, really nice ungrown. So I'm not there directly, but I'm doing some consulting on work there. And hopefully if COVID is done, I'd like to be there for harvest maybe in September, October to see how things are doing. But I know their head farmer. We communicate about every week now, and they're gearing up to have their first planting. They're called Castle Rock Agriculture, and they're a really good group. They're self-funded. They're working hard to grow sun-grown the best way they can in the season that they have, which is a very short season, being out there in Western Massachusetts.
Wonderful.
Wow.
Much success.
That's fascinating. Yeah,
Okay.
that is
So do
fascinating.
we have enough?
So we should probably wrap it up here. It's just been great talking with you, Marty, and not only talking about some politics, but everything else too. It's been just great to see you, and we'll look forward to seeing you out here on the ranch, I hope, on June 5th.
And do you have a website that people can
Definitely.
or Instagram or something like that? You could put it up in the chat if you know how to do that.
Sure, just yeah, we have the website martyjuana.com, and we're also across social medias. My wife Laura maintains the social media on Facebook and Instagram. You can definitely say hello. You could also type in Marijuana Moonshot, MOONSHOT. That's the brand new article that was just written last month in Marijuana Ventures. I got an email from Nikki when she read it. It was great to have. She actually told me about it. I didn't get a notice from the magazine that it was going to be released. And you were the first person to tell me about it, Nikki. So that was really cool. So definitely read that article, and it gives you a really good sense of, who I am and, what we stand for at Martyjuana Farms. And, I really appreciate the time. I'm so glad that we set this up. Thank you.
Well, thanks for being such
Yeah.
a great guest with tons of information and good vibes and so on.
Yes.
So do we have another show coming up, Nikki?
Chris, what's his name?
Oh, in 2 weeks on Thursday at the 4:20 time, we've got Chris Bennett, who's going to be, he's a great writer about the history of cannabis and cannabis used in religious purposes, cannabis is used as alchemist and so on. He's written many books about, cannabis in the Bible and cannabis in the Vedas and so on. He lives up in Vancouver, so he'll be our guest. If you're interested in the history of cannabis and how it's been used magically and spiritually throughout history, tune in 2 weeks from
2
now.
weeks from today. But Marty, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Give our love to Laura, please.
Yeah.
Give her a hug, and hope we get to see you soon. Hope we get to see all of you soon.
Will do.
And it's been a ton of fun, really.
And especially to Aunt Patty. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Aunt Patty.
Have a great evening. Love you all.